When was the last time anybody saw us beating, let's say, China in a trade deal?
You look at what China is doing to our country in terms of making our product.
America has lost 70,000 factories since China entered the World Trade Organization.
I think it's unlikely because in the last 18 months, China has actually been intervening to keep the value of the yuan up rather than having it too low. So at the moment, the currency manipulation charge isn't very plausible. But in the long run, it might be. So the question is, what will he do? If he labels China a currency manipulator, then China will certainly respond. And so I don't know what the Trump administration would have as its fallback policy. So I think there's a real risk in that. Because he is a bargainer, that what he will try to do is send some kind of negotiating team to China to figure out what the Chinese response is. If things are promising, then I doubt if he would try to put a very high tariff like that. Also, many American firms who assemble or manufacture items in China would be dissatisfied with that. So he would have to deal with a domestic reaction. But I think there's a reasonable chance that he will at least start with that as his bargaining position. The question is what he actually does. I think it's very unlikely that Trump would go ahead with TPP with the same name, with the same structure. I think it might change in character. And again, it depends what's happening to the U.S. economy. If the U.S. economy continues to improve as it's doing now, then I think he would be less worried about this. If, however, the economy were to decline, then I think he would be more worried and much less likely to revive it. But I think TPP is not likely to go ahead with the current name and the current structure. It's likely to be remodeled and presented in some different way. Yes, I think that Trump will take a stronger position than Obama has. President Obama has supported what are called freedom of navigation operations, which means overflights and sailing of ships close to the atolls that are occupied by China. I think that Trump will go farther. And so it's interesting that China has already made some minor concessions to the Philippines. The Chinese have taken away their patrol boats around Scarborough Shoal and allowed the Philippine fishing boats to come back. So to me, that's a sign that China may be more flexible than it currently is stated. But I don't think there's any question that many of American allies in Southeast Asia were disappointed by President Obama not supporting them more strongly. And I think Trump will try to do that. Trump doesn't have a track record. Most of the prior candidates, for example, if you asked me about McCain or Romney, I could have told you because they had worked in the field and they had a track record. Trump does not. So it's a lot harder to be able to judge Trump's behavior. However, it is a mistake to assume that he doesn't care about foreign policy. I think it took a lot of courage for him to challenge the George W. Bush administration. Remember, he was very critical of them in Iraq. He feels that George W. Bush put much too much emphasis on the Middle East. So in that sense, his ideas are somewhat similar to what Obama's were when Obama created the Asian pivot or the rebalancing. So I think that Trump understands economics. He recognizes how important Asia is. But there's absolutely no question that he will push for a change of relationship with the allies.